I want to talk a little bit about humanity's place in a world of AI when it comes to Africa. But first, a question. First, a question. Why does it feel like the goal of life is productivity? Does anybody else feel that way? Economic growth, GDP, productivity hacks, efficient capital markets. We're always doing. We're constantly finding ways to do more with less. And I think it's costing humanity something. I asked our faithful advisors these days, ChatGPT and Gemini, what they thought. ChatGPT and Gemini said, no, the goal of life is not productivity, right? It actually says an unhealthy focus on it can lead to misery and anxiety. That the true goal of life is often seen as a deeper sense of purpose, happiness, personal growth. I find that really interesting. So then why does it feel this way? We've sort of come to this place where we've got a hustle culture. We actually get a dopamine rush, a chemical reaction in our brain that actually gives us a good feeling from accomplishing and doing things. But what is it actually costing us in humanity? It's costing us a lot. On the one hand, it seems like we're constantly optimizing for productivity. We're constantly optimizing for how we can do more in society. On the other hand, though, we've hit this point with AI, we've hit this point with technology that we have a different question that we have to answer. We are no longer just industrializing what exists. That's the Industrial Revolution. We're no longer just digitizing what exists, the digital revolution. We're at a point where we actually critically have to think about the society we want to build for the future and how AI and technology can actually help us. So, ChatGPT and Gemini said that anxiety and misery are what come from an unhealthy focus on productivity. I've been listening to people over the last week or two, taking note of some of the sentences that I've been hearing, and it's a bit saddening. I heard a child say to their dad, if I start a business, would that help you stay at home with me a little bit more? I heard a father say during a meeting, my kid is sick, but with how much is going on at work right now, I need to be here. I need to finish this meeting. I can't actually leave to go and get them from school. A friend of mine the other day said, it's at a point now where it feels like the SLA for getting back to a text is a few days. It's just so much that I have to respond to. A colleague of mine says it's hard running a household, managing work, taking care of an aging parent with a chronic condition, and still trying to have a life outside of all of this. That last one was me. Right now, I have my father. He has vascular dementia, and it's caused from a life of stress, a life of potentially unresolved traumas. And I'll take you back a little bit. My dad left Nigeria during the Civil War. He fled to Cameroon. He was there for a bit of time before getting a scholarship through a church that he was a part of to go and study in the US. Like many of us, education is very important. He did 5 degrees, came back to Nigeria, got my mom. They went to the United States, and the rest they say is history. But not so much. My parents, I would say, and many of our parents have a history of productivity, education and certifications and volunteering and boards and projects in Nigeria and doing, creating a family, creating a household, creating a situation in America where he also had a lot to deal with, right? He moved about 10 years after the Civil Rights Act was passed in the United States, but there was still a lot of racial tension. Immigrants, especially African immigrants, were really criticized a lot, and he had to go through a lot. Combine that with unresolved traumas from the war, combine that with the stressors of life, you get high blood pressure. And a lot of people are actually dealing with high blood pressure, a lifestyle disease, a disease that is caused by the way that we actually choose to live. 1 in 3 adults have high blood pressure. 1 in 5 people globally will develop some form of cancer. 1 out of 9 people globally have diabetes. Think about that for a second. In your household, your circle of friends, football, if you play football, your soccer team, think about that. This is what we've done in society as a result of productivity. Lifestyle diseases are diseases that can actually be prevented. So let's zoom out a little bit and let's talk about the cost of productivity. Real GDP, so that's adjusted for inflation. And the last thing is just the population size. What's interesting here, again, we're talking about the cost of productivity. You see the bright red, China and the EU. 9 out of 10 people will die from a lifestyle disease. 9 out of 10. What is the fastest growing economy in the world? China. Look at India and the United States. 7 out of 10 people will die from a preventable lifestyle disease. But there's good news. There's good news. Don't worry. There's good news. Look at us. Look at where we are. Look at we're in bright green. Eh? Look at where we are. We have a chance to course correct before it's too late. In the age of AI and technology that could actually help us. If you look at population size, it's just an interesting statistic because sometimes I don't think we contextualize ourselves globally. Across Africa's 54 countries, we're 1.5 billion people, same as India, same as China. If you look at GDP, again, adjusted for inflation in the middle, China is equivalent to EU's 27 countries. They've worked really, really hard to be productive, but it's actually killing their people. We have an opportunity as we move into this AI age to actually focus on what it means to be productive, leveraging technology to actually help us. But let's look at Nigeria's case more specifically. So the first column, you'll see the 1970s. We then go to today, or 2024, and then projecting out about 50 years. We're going to look at real GDP, population, unemployment, and poverty. And again, I want us to focus on the cost of productivity. So between 1970s and 2024, we basically 4x'd across the board. 4x'd in population, 4x'd in the real GDP. Look at what happened to poverty. But look at the middle. What happened to unemployment? Nothing. People will argue about the data. They will say, well, did we measure it? Did we track everybody? Do we actually know what's actually happening? But look, generally, it's 4 to 5%. It hasn't changed. How is it possible that poverty has gone up 3 times, but the unemployment rate has stayed the same? Now we're projecting out 50 years. Population doubles. Poverty continues to increase. GDP. Goldman Sachs predicts that we will 70x our GDP. 70. Remember China. Remember India. We will 70x our GDP if we educate the youth and if we get them employed. Those are really big ifs. The cost of productivity is really high. It's costing health. It's breaking down the protective barrier of community that many of our people and our cultures are actually known for. And it's created what is actually the real issue. It's underemployment. It's not the issue that people do not have enough jobs. The issue is that the jobs that people have are not actually financially taking care of their day-to-day needs. That is called underemployment. But imagine a world where we didn't focus so much on creating jobs. We didn't focus so much on what that means in the age of AI, when AI is meant to be taking over many of this. What does that mean? In the global north, there's a labor shortage. They literally are not producing enough people to take care of the labor needs. But that's going to be solved by AI. AI is creating cheaper job replacement. if you look at our markets, how does that help us? How does that help us? If our issue is actually underemployment, how do creating more jobs help us? It doesn't. What we need to focus on is the real issue. It's reducing the cost of living. The 4 drivers of cost of living are food, transportation, energy, and also housing. That's where we need to be focused. We need to be using the technology. I love what was said earlier by Chude, not on leveraging it in the same ways that other regions are using it, but actually using it to solve our problem. Our problem is underemployment, not that people do not have employment. So how can we use technology to actually focus on reducing the cost of living? I think our focus needs to start with a bit of vision. Again, we started this out talking about the cost of productivity on our health, the cost of productivity on lifestyle diseases, and how the more societies prioritize productivity, the sicker and older they become. Is that the path that we want for ourselves? I argue no. There are 4 things we should be focused on. Technology is supposed to be helping us do more and do it better. We need a better vision for health in terms of food and exercise, mental health, mental wellness. We need a different paradigm and a different way of thinking about purpose-driven work and just less work overall. More time for friends, family, and community, that's what we should be focused on. If we're not doing that, why are we on Earth? What are we doing? Why are we here? If we're able to use technology to actually focus on reducing the cost of living, and people are still earning the same amount, they can afford more. So financial wealth also then goes up. There are 4 things I think we can do. I know there's a lot going on in this slide, so I'll try to summarize it. But the first thing is just really an integrated vision. We in this country, in Nigeria, we don't have an integrated vision for how we see ourselves together. So the first thing I'm proposing is an integrated commission, a commission that focuses on the integration of Nigeria. We've heard earlier about telling more of our stories. We should be sharing more of our stories with each other, sharing more of our history, sharing more about ways in which we're collaborating with each other and together. We don't have that right now. The second thing that we should be focused on is how we actually can spend more on research and development. Research and development, it roots our innovation in data and information, rather than people just out and doing and creating. How can we root more of the innovation in data? We need to be taking some of the funds, I think it was 83 billion that was recovered from the fuel subsidy removal. How can we rechannel some of that into R&D and providing grants that put research, that put work into actually figuring out ways in which we can reduce the cost of living? The third thing I think we can do is really then focus on public infrastructure, digital public infrastructure. The current administration is doing quite a bit in this area already, but they're not really as focused on the areas that are driving the highest cost of living. They're copying a model that's similar to what India did with the India stack: digital identities, financial payments, data. But there's more, right, that can be done in terms of how we can provide the actual digital public infrastructure that can help other businesses build on top of that infrastructure so that everybody is not starting from ground zero when they are starting a business. They're starting from a layer above. The last thing that I've noted here, I mentioned, and I mentioned in my intro, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of startups through our accelerator program, Accelerate Africa. One thing that I've observed is there are 90% of the economy driven by small to medium enterprises. 90%. But we don't bring the small to medium enterprises together with the tech ecosystem. How do we bring these 2 worlds and encourage and incentivize these 2 worlds to come together? How do you get the tech ecosystem to be focused on actually creating solutions for the drivers of the economy? How do you incentivize that behavior? So, what is humanity's place in society in the age of AI across Africa? It's a world where we are focused on reducing the cost of living. It's a world where we actually get time back. With all of this productivity, you get time back to focus on the things that actually matter: your health, time with family and friends, focusing on work that's more purpose-driven, actually trying to find ways to reduce the cost of living, which therefore increases the amount of wealth that people have. Sometimes I get a little bit discouraged, and I know we all do, right, at different points. And you're like, is it possible with all this technology, where is society heading? What are we going to do? And I get inspired by the civil rights movement. I get inspired by the independence movement. One of our speakers was talking about this earlier. It's interesting because you had leaders of these movements who were able to create a vision. And that vision is what has actually changed the trajectory of society. So we need more of us who are focused on that. And there's a quote here from Kwame Nkrumah. It is clear that we must find an African solution to our problems, and that this can be only found in African unity. Divided we are weak. United Africa could become one of the greatest forces for good in the world. Thank you.